Hello again, I'm Ray with another podcast episode. Do you remember last week it was all about the house in the woods? Do you remember that one? The house in the woods. Now quite a few of you liked that. I've had quite a lot of response. And people have said, is there anything else like that you experienced back in the old days? Now I know it's not 50s, 60s newspaper reviews, shops, school, work, food. It's not that sort of thing. But it's interesting all the same, because this did happen back, what I'm about to tell you, did happen back in the 1970s. A Polaroid camera is involved. Do you remember the Polaroid cameras? I don't know whether they still make them. They were the first camera ever that developed its own film. And I got hold of one. It was second hand and it worked all right. I got hold of this camera and, let me tell you the story from the beginning. I had a girlfriend at the time. She loved walking through the woods. She liked the rabbits, the birds, wildlife. I enjoyed country walks, so we got on pretty well. We went for a walk one afternoon and we were walking past this farm gate, the 5-bar gates, the wooden gates. And I said to her, look, just sit on the gate. I'll take a photo of you with the camera. I wanted to try it out. I tried it out a couple of times before, but I wanted to get some decent photographs of her. So she sat on the gate and I took a photo. Now, the Polaroid camera, you have to wait, was it a minute or two for the film to develop? Then you peel the back off it. Black and white, of course. So I peeled the paper off and there was the photograph of her on the gate. Very crisp, very clear, black and white, as I said. Good photo. But standing, or not standing, just behind the gate next to her, only a few, inches away, was a sort of white figure. Initially, I thought it was the camera. They'd let light in or something wrong with the camera, light reflecting on the lens. But as I looked at it, I could see it was a figure. Now, I showed her and she said, oh, that looks like a ghost. And I just laughed. I said, no, it's something wrong with the camera. It's letting the light in. So I took another photo, this time not of her, but just of the gate and the field and the trees and the bushes behind. She walked off by this time, so I was following her. I peeled the paper off the photo. There was the gate and there was the figure again. Now, this wasn't light getting into the camera. I knew that. I could see it was the shape of a human being. It was a person, being black and white. Whoever it was dressed all in white. So it's a shame it wasn't colour. I think they did bring out colour Polaroid cameras a bit later on, didn't they? It was all very strange, but I didn't say any more to her about it. As we finished our walk, we headed back past the gate. I said to her, look, I'm just going to take one more photo of the field, the scenery, just to test the camera. This time I went from a completely different angle. I got the gate in, got everything in as before, but a completely different angle, so there would be no light reflecting off the lens or anything like that. I took the photo, and as we walked back to my car, it developed and I peeled the paper off, and there was the figure. This time leaning on the gate, looking at me, and this was a lot clearer this time. I could see it was the figure of a boy in some sort of smock. I don't know, it was difficult, as I say, because it was black and white, but it looked like a dress. But I could see that it was a boy. He had shortish hair, difficult to describe, but it was pretty clear. I could definitely see it was a boy. I didn't tell her about that. I put the photos in my jacket pocket and left it at that. A couple of days later, I was in our local pub waiting for my girlfriend to turn up, and a couple of my friends were there and we were just having a chat, and I got this photograph out and I didn't say I'd taken the photo. I said, look at this, what do you think of that? And they laughed. One said, oh look, there's a ghost. Now I didn't show them the one of my girlfriend in the photo, obviously, just the one with the gate. And they would say, oh, these fake photos, where'd you get that from? I said, oh, an auntie of mine has given me a box of photos. She wants me to go through them and sort them out. I said, I found this in the box. And they all agreed. They all said, well, this is typical fake photo. Don't know how it's done, but someone's done something, superimposed something. Not for 1 second did anyone say, I wonder whether that's real. I wonder whether that's a ghost. So that was that. They all went off to play bar billiards down the other end of the pub. I put the photo back in my jacket pocket when a girl approached me. Now, she'd been at the end of the bar, the far end of the bar. I'd only glimpsed her out of the corner of my eye. I hadn't taken much notice. She said, I overheard you. May I look at the photograph? And I said, yes. I got it out of my pocket again and showed her. And she said, that's not fake, is it? And I said, no. I said, I took this photo. I said, I didn't tell them that because they'd just laugh and ridicule me. And she said, I can see that's not fake. I said to her, you seem to know about this sort of thing. Are you some kind of medium or something? And I laughed. And she said, yes. She then asked me where the photograph was taken. And I explained. I said, do you know the area? She said, oh, yes, yes. So I told her where it was. She said, yes, I know. I know where you mean exactly. She said, I'd like to go and have a look. Will you meet me there? So it was getting dark at this stage, even though it was a summer evening, it was getting dark. So I said, well, how about after work tomorrow? Perhaps 7 o'clock? I'll meet you there by the gate. She said she knew the gate. She knew exactly where I meant. So we agreed to meet there. She was, about my age, 22, something like that. She was quite attractive, seemed quite friendly, and she said her name was Rachael. And to be honest, I was quite looking forward to meeting her there. Now, I didn't tell my girlfriend. Rachael disappeared, and my girlfriend eventually joined me in the pub. I didn't tell her anything about it because she'd probably get the wrong idea. I didn't want to upset her because it was purely, purely spiritual. That's probably the wrong way to put it. But there was nothing else in it. It was purely to do with this, what I can only call a ghost. I got to the farm gate a little bit early. Rachael wasn't there. So I was just leaning on the gate, staring at the grass, the bushes, the trees, the field, wondering where this figure was, this ghostly figure, when Rachael tapped me on the shoulder and nearly frightened the life out of me. Oh, sorry, she said. Sorry, didn't mean to make you jump. I got the camera with me and I was fiddling around with that. She said, I'm going to go and stand over the other side of the gate in the field and see if I can feel anything. I said, okay. So I was fiddling with the camera. By the time I'd done that, I looked up and she was standing to 8 yards, maybe 10 yards into the field, the other side of the gate. I had the camera at the ready and I was watching her. Now she was sideways on to me, looking to my left, sideways on, and she had her left arm out, as if she was holding something. Now I couldn't see anything. Then she started talking. She said, I'm Rachael. Pleased to meet you, Tom. And I thought, this is it. She's talking to whoever this boy is. So I took a photograph. It seemed like ages for it to develop while she was chatting to whoever it was I couldn't see, but it finally developed. I peeled the paper off and I could see this boy in the photograph as clearly as I could see Rachael. They were talking to each other. I couldn't believe it. The detail was perfect. I could see him perfectly clearly, just as if he was real, like she was. I took another photograph as they chatted, and there they both were, crystal clear in the photo. And I was thinking, this is my evidence, my photographic evidence that I hadn't been dreaming or I hadn't gone mad or anything like that. I was so pleased to get these photos. I put them in my jacket pocket. As I looked up, Rachael was walking towards me. I couldn't see Tom. She was walking towards me and she stood the other side of the gate about, 2 feet away. And she said, I'm going to take Tom home. Now I said, to your house? And she said, no, to his home. And she said, he wants to meet you. Now I was totally confused. To his home? Where did he live? And she said, take my hand. And she put her hand across the gate. So I reached out, I held her hand. And as I did that, Tom came into view. He was standing next to her. I could see him as clearly as I could see Rachael. He smiled at me and he just said, thank you. I didn't know what for. I didn't know what I'd done. And I just nodded. I don't think I said anything. I didn't know what to say. I was just stunned. And she said, I'll see you again. I just nodded again and grinned. She let go of my hand. They both turned and walked away into the field. As they got maybe 10, 12 yards away, they disappeared. They just faded, dematerialised. I suppose that's the best word to use. They both disappeared into thin air. I was stunned. As I walked back to my car, I didn't know what to think. I looked at the photographs again to make sure I hadn't been dreaming, that I hadn't gone mad. There they were in the photographs, clear as day. I put them back in my pocket. I was determined to hang on to those photos. That was the only evidence I had. But why had Rachael disappeared? I chatted to her in the pub. I chatted to her by the gate. Why had she disappeared? She wasn't a ghost, was she? Over the next, 2 or 3 months, I suppose, I went up to the gate several times, looking for Rachael, looking for Tom. I took the camera, took photographs, nothing at all. I was very disappointed because I'd wanted to meet Rachael again, because there were a lot of questions that I wanted answered. Was she real? How come she disappeared? Was she a ghost? What was going on? My girlfriend and I split up. She thought I had someone else. I was thinking about Rachael all the time, but it wasn't another girl in that sense. I was thinking about Rachael all the time. Who wouldn't, with the experience I'd had? We eventually drifted apart, which was a shame because we got on very well and I enjoyed the walks with her. I went up to the gate one evening, half hoping that I'd see my ex-girlfriend there, but I didn't. I wasn't sure whether I wanted to see Rachael or her, really. I wasn't sure what I wanted. I was leaning on the gate, looking across the field, watching the sunset, when there was a tap on my shoulder. I spun round, hand to my chest. It was Rachael. I said, "You nearly gave me a heart attack." She laughed, said she was sorry. And I said, "Where are you? Where have you been? Who are you? What are you?" I just sort of blurted out these various inane words and what are you doing? Where are you from? And she put her hand up as if to stop me, and she just said, "Shush, shush, it's all right." She said, "I help people that are lost, and I've just come back to thank you for finding Tom for me." I said, "Lost?" I said, "What, you're a ghost?" She said, "That's not a good word to use." She said, "I live on another plane." So in my mind, she was a ghost. I was standing face to face with and talking to a ghost. She looked across the field. I turned to see what she was looking at. I wonder whether she was seeing another ghost. There was nothing there. I turned back to face her and she'd gone. No sign of her. I called her, Rachael, called her. Nothing, she'd gone. A few weeks later, I was talking to a friend of mine and he was on about a TV film or programme he'd seen. He wondered whether I'd seen it. It was about some ghost story. And I said, no, I didn't see it. He said to me, "Do you believe in ghosts?" And I said, no, I don't, not something I've ever wondered about. I didn't want to tell him anything about Rachael, obviously. And he said this was a very good film. Although it was fiction, it really was food for thought. I remember his words. That evening I took the photographs out of a book. I'd kept them in a book for safekeeping. I took them out, laid them on the table. There was my ex-girlfriend on the gate, and the rest of the photos were just of the gate and the field. No Rachael, no Tom, no shapes, no glowing white shape next to my girlfriend. They were just photos of the field. Just the photos of the field. I began to wonder whether Polaroid film deteriorated with time, but everything else in the photo was fine. My ex-girlfriend was there, the gate, everything was crystal clear. But nothing else at all. I never saw Rachael again. I used to go up to the field gate once or twice a year. Never saw anything, no sign of her. Never saw her again, which was a shame. There we are, that's the story of Rachael and Tom. Hope you enjoyed it. I know it's not in keeping, as I said at the beginning, it's not in keeping with 1950s, 1960s happenings, food, school, work and all that. But after the response, really good response from last week's episode, The House in the Woods, I just thought you might be interested in hearing about Rachael and Tom. Thanks for listening, as always. Take care. I shall see you next time. Bye-bye for now.